Okay. So, winter trucking safety. Thanks everybody for attending. First day of winter, perfect time for winter trucking safety. If you have any questions while I speak here, feel free to type them in on the little messenger pad on the bottom. Usually it's on the right-hand side. So we're going to start on the introduction. Of course, we all know driving in bad weather, especially in snow and ice, is risky due to the stop time, poor visibility, poor traction, yada, yada, yada. So we put this together to go over the most common sense and what we see on an everyday basis. For those of you who don't know me, started many, many years ago driving a truck, worked my way up. I ran a 40 truck fleet, a logistics manager. So a lot of this is from experience as a driver and as a logistics manager as well. So to get started, the most common issues are dead batteries, starting the truck. So for those of you who don't know, a diesel-powered vehicle, fuel and air must get hot enough to create combustion, which then creates a spark to start the engine. So these are the steps that should be followed. Now, we know about glow plugs, but most modern trucks have the intake has a heater that takes that cold air and heats it up to create combustion. So a lot of people don't know this. They'll just keep on cranking and keep on cranking and kill those batteries. We all know the colder the weather gets, the more stress on the batteries. So these key things should work. Not 100%, but I would say 98% sure, especially on the more modern trucks, 2007 and up. Turn the key on the start position without turning on the engine. You will see a wait to start light. It's on the instrument cluster. Don't attempt to start it until that engine light disappears. So the heating of the glow plugs or the intake takes approximately 15 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. Depends on the weather. It depends on the make and model of the vehicle. Once that wait to start light goes out until the glow plugs are ready or the intake is ready during the cold weather, it will take even longer to heat. So wait for that light to go out. Once that light goes out, that wait to start light or the little coil light, depending on the vehicle, just flick that starter. Just turn the key, don't hold it. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, allow it to crank. Don't crank it more than 30 seconds. If the truck fails to start within 30 seconds, start the whole process over again. This page right here is a good page to print out, give to your drivers. This way, they don't kill the batteries. You don't have to wait for road service to give you a jump. This saves a lot of time. I learned this the hard way. So this is definitely one of the most crucial and easiest ways to get that truck started in the morning. So now, once the truck is started, it's all systems go. It's pre-trip, pre-trip, pre-trip. Be certain that the defroster and the heater are working properly, wipers, wiper motors, lights, especially tail and headlights, especially in the tri-state area. DOT has been out in full force. I'm seeing it in areas I've never seen before. So make sure washer fluid is topped off. All windows and mirrors are completely clean. Be sure to clear off the snow and ice before the operating of the windshield wipers. This is from experience driving a truck, especially in the Hinos. The wipers must be able to move freely. So let's say the driver shuts his truck off the night before, doesn't shut the wipers off. He gets in the truck, and now the wipers are frozen to the windshield. As soon as those wipers, he's going to blow a fuse. That's just how the Hinos are. Instead of burning out the motor, it's going to burn a fuse. So now he's got to look into get a fuse replacement. So make sure those wipers are off. Do not start them until the windshield is cleared off and free of ice. Also, what you want to have your drivers remember that trucks, most of these trucks have air brakes now. Drain the tanks. They do have air dryers, but it's a good habit of draining these tanks. All of these tanks have drains on them. If the drivers don't know or aren't sure or don't know how to operate it, stop at their branch and they'll show them how to do it. It's pretty easy to do. It's just letting the air out, get the water out, because that can cause a whole bit of trouble. And again, pre-trip and post-trip, especially in the wintertime. So I'll repeat it again. Wipers, if they're frozen to the windshield, don't turn them on until that windshield is clear, because he's going to have what's going to happen is a fuse will blow, and then it has to be replaced. And these fuses are pretty tiny, so if you got decent sized fingers, they're not the easiest things to find and replace. And also drain those air tanks. Feel free to stop by the branch if your driver's not sure how to do it. What's the proper method? Stop at the branch. Mechanic will show them. Branch manager will show them. It's not that big of a deal. That'll save you a lot of problems down the road. You know, believe it or not, falls from vehicles, especially guys that on and off that truck all day long making deliveries. I call it the 3 points of contact when entering or exiting a vehicle. Use the handrails and steps provided. That's why they're there. Don't skip any. Check the condition of the handrails and steps during their pre-trip inspection. It's a good habit. Make sure there are no breaks or loose screws. Make sure the steps and rails are free of grease and oil, especially if the equipment has been recently serviced. It happens. You know, uncoupling your trailer, the fifth wheel, it gets greasy. You can grease on your boot, on your glove. The grease transfers to a handrail. Just look out, make sure everything is nice and clean. And of course, we're talking about winter. Weather is always a factor. So rain, ice, sleet, and snow can cause your handrails to become dangerously slippery. You want to have the driver inspect them, keep these areas during the pre-trip, and use caution. There's a 3-point rule. Before you exit, run your hands across the mirror frame. If the mirror frame has ice on it, your steps are going to have ice. So that's a good point of habit too. If your mirrors have ice, your steps may have ice. And please tell your drivers not to jump from the trucks. It was nice when we were young. As you get older, that's when slips occur. Never use the fuel tank as a step. Use the proper footwear. We all know non-slip soles are the best bet. This one may not be so easy for some drivers. A clean cab is important. Tools, tire bumpers, fire extinguishers, which should be secured. They come with a bracket. You don't want them rolling around. Make sure they're in their proper place and out of their path of entry or exit. And also tell them to take their time. Being in too much of a hurry will land them on the back. You know, 5-foot tall fall can be kind of serious. I've seen it happen. Knees, back injuries. You know, it's common sense. Take their time. Don't be in a rush. It does take longer to clean off snow and ice from a truck, but better being safe than sorry. And I put these slides together to use as handouts for your drivers. The biggest problem I have, I love to meet the drivers and get them in a group, and I've done company-wide driver meetings and give them tips. So you always call me. I'm always willing to do that on your schedule, whether it's a Saturday morning or at night after their deliveries. You let me know, give me enough advance, and I'll do this as well with your drivers. This is pretty simple. Ice on windshield equals ice on the road, but it has to be conveyed to the drivers. Watch out for black ice. The ice doesn't have to be packed on the road or, you know, to be dangerous. Well, it only takes a thin sheet to make driving hazardous. A good rule to follow is checking black ice conditions is when the road looks wet and the vehicle in front of them has no spray coming off the tires, they have to watch out. And I used to tell this to my drivers, a reflective road can be a destructive road. So to repeat this, you tell your drivers, if the road is reflective in front of them, they don't see any spray coming off the tires, off the vehicle in front of them, more than likely, it could be black ice, and just to keep it slow and keep their space. Another huge issue, this has happened to me quite often, but if you have newer drivers aren't familiar, diesel fuel will turn into gel when it gets cold. If it drills, the truck won't run. One of the common symptoms are it won't run altogether, or they'll only get to like 15, 20 miles an hour, and that's it, because the fuel flow is restricted because of the gelling. So it's a good habit to put an anti-gel additive once the temperatures fall to 40 degrees and below. So such as now, have them use it. Follow the directions on these on the additive. You can never use too much. It's not going to harm anything. But but you still want to be sure to try to use the correct amount of additive. But the directions are pretty simple. And also keep in mind that HUB, our fuel, we have additive already added to the fuel. I say that 3 times. It's kind of a tongue twister. So HUB's fuel, we already have an anti-gel in it, but if you do go to other fuel stations, they may not. So you want to always, for safe insurance, have them add the additive to it. It should be common practice, especially this time of year. It may hit 45 during the day, but at night it hit 20, 25 degrees. So it doesn't take much. Now, I used to call, the worst day was a driver getting into an accident. And God forbid somebody got hurt or a truck got towed. So at-fault accidents are mostly due to excessive speed. They may not technically be speeding, but for the weather conditions, they are. So driving a speed limit may be legal, but it's often too fast for snow or ice-covered roads. This rule should always be kept on the top of any winter safety tip list. Just slow it down. You want to keep a safe following distance. Always leave plenty of room between your vehicle and the vehicle in front of you whenever possible. And I've seen this quite often, driving a big truck, go up to New England. A lot of these guys, they play follow the leader, and you don't want to do that. Traveling in packs, it may look nice, and maybe that's the thing to do, but in bad weather, don't want to do it. Traveling in packs and following the taillights of the vehicle ahead can lead into an accident. Trucks can leave the road, and you could follow them right into the back of another truck and off the road as well. What other drivers don't realize, especially drivers that don't have that much experience, be careful when driving over bridges and exit ramps. Airflow and water over and under the bridges cause the exit ramps to freeze first. So feel free to share these slides and bring these and give these to the drivers' attention. This is really, it sounds simple, it's quick, they read it, it gets in their head, and it's something for them to use. Now, to drive or not to drive, you want to use good judgment. Generally, the manager, fleet manager, warehouse manager will make the call whether they're going to send the trucks out or not. But generally, it's up to the driver as well. But when you make that call, if the weather is so severe that you need to get off the road, do it. Have your drivers, if you get stuck in a snowstorm, they have to get off the road, do it. Find a safe place and get off the road safely and wait until conditions are safe. But they don't want to have them go on the shoulder of the road. That's the worst spot. When driving in poor winter conditions such as blinding snow, other vehicles can mistake your position for being on the road, and they may end up slamming into the back of your vehicle. But you also don't want your drivers to be a hero as well. When the road conditions are severe, you need to realize it can be very dangerous to be out there. You don't want to be letting anyone down by meeting a delivery schedule. I know back in the day those trucks don't run, the company doesn't get paid, but there are certain times and conditions where that safety comes first. So make sure if they're going to pull over, whether it be a parking lot, somewhere, don't be on the shoulder of the road. I've seen way too many accidents, and devastating accidents from trucks parking on the shoulder. Worst thing to do. Now, this may not be as far as winter, but it all adds up. And I'll discuss my own personal story with this as well. You want to avoid leaving trucks in flood-prone areas, such as loading docks, where the water can flood and ice can form when bad weather is predicted. If you have a truck in a flooded area and the water is above the lowest lug nut, don't start it. Call HUB immediately. So the rule of thumb is if you have a loading dock or one of your customers has a loading dock or the truck is sitting there overnight, if it's a flood-prone area, pull that truck out. But if it happens to get flooded in there and the water is at the lowest lug nut, don't start it. It'll suck in water, and it's a huge amount of problems. These newer trucks have a lot of electronics on them. You don't want water getting into your axles, and it causes a whole bunch of problems. You call HUB immediately. Also, what we do see happen, we have about 1,600 trucks out there. When the trucks are parked, such as on this picture, under overhangs, snow will fall on top of this truck and also can cave in the top of the roofs. They're very thin. Usually it's that see-through material. So you want to keep that in mind as well. This is a perfect picture. This was actually a truck when this picture was taken, and that's after some of the water had receded. And also that awning is a prime example of heavy snow just piling up on one section of the top of the truck. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. If you have a loading dock like this, load the truck, get it out before a heavy rainstorm comes, and save yourself a ton of trouble. So this happens all too often, and we hate to see it happen. Here's some winter emergency items that we recommend. Warm socks, hats, and gloves, your blanket or sleeping bag just in case, non-perishable foods. This may be a little extreme. I mean, if your drivers are local, they may not need all this, but if they're going to go on a long trip, you want to keep this in consideration. Extra medication if they're on any prescription medication, bottled water, small foldable shovel, flashlights and batteries, first aid kit, multi-purpose tool, jumper cables. Could come in handy if they're out of the area and, you know, they may need them. Basic tool kit, of course, your windshield de-icer and scraper, fully charged cell phone and charger, and extra washer fluid. Please tell the drivers not to use just water, adding water into the reservoir, because they do freeze and they will crack. So you want to take that into consideration. Washer fluid is only washer fluid for the washer fluid reservoir, not water. So now the newer vehicles, you know, a lot of new taillights, they don't generate heat because they're LED powered. So whenever possible, have the drivers clean off the lights. Even headlights are LEDs or these high discharge. They don't create that much heat. Clean them off as much as possible. Make sure all the lights are visible. You tell them, keep everything clean so they can be seen. I'll bring this up again. DOT is out there. I tell everybody, don't let a $2 ball become a $200 ticket. It's so visible, especially with the limited sunlight we have now. So you definitely want to make sure they're checking their lights. So the problem is in the wintertime, of course, these trucks idle more. So all of these newer trucks now have a DPF filter in them. And when these trucks are idling for, you know, extended amounts of time to keep the driver warm, it creates more soot in the filter. So we see regen issues happen more in very hot weather and very cold weather because the trucks are idling for air conditioning and then the trucks are idling for heat. So what I wanted to bring to attention is the regen method. Not everybody knows about it. Sometimes people don't know about it until the last minute, what the problem is. So we're going to go to that one. I'll bring up the next slide set over here. So we'll go over this quickly. Diesel particulate filter, how it works. I'm not going to go into detail, but basically it's a ceramic filter that's in the exhaust line. And basically I tell everybody it's like something inside of a straw. And over time, you don't see that black soot anymore. Those days are gone. But that soot goes somewhere. It gets pushed into this filter. So over time, the more idling that they're doing, the soot gets built up in this filter. So this filter has to be what they call regenerated or cleaned. So again, over time, soot will build up on the channel walls of the filter. In order to remove that soot, a process called regeneration, and I'm just repeating myself, but I have to. It's called regeneration. It's regenerated to its original state. It works with flame, heat, and heat will burn off that soot. So there are 3 different kinds of regeneration. You have passive regeneration. It occurs when the exhaust gases are hot enough to burn it off, such as highway conditions above 30 miles an hour or heavy load conditions where that engine is creating more heat and burning off that soot. The filter is being regenerated on its own. The driver never has to do anything. It just drive the truck. It's working seamlessly. Nothing has to be done. Active regen, this occurs when enough soot accumulates in the filter to raise the exhaust back pressure to a certain limit. This process is initiated by injecting fuel into the exhaust automatically. Again, the driver doesn't have to do anything. And it goes under these conditions. City driving with light load conditions. No driver interaction is normally required. But here in the wintertime, this is what we see the most. Manual regen, because that long idling time and the exhaust isn't getting hot enough, it just clogs up that filter. That's when manual regen is required. So manual regen is required when the vehicle is driven in heavy stop-and-go traffic or heavy periods of idle time. This is due to the exhaust unable to get hot enough to burn off the accumulated soot. This is when the driver has to press that regen button. So when and how is a manual regeneration performed? A warning will occur when the regen light turns amber, followed by an audible chime. It'll be and then this will be a warning to the driver that the DPF is partially clogged and we require the driver to do two of the things. Drive the vehicle above 30 miles an hour. So if that light goes on and he knows he's getting out of delivery, he's going to be hopping on, let's say, the expressway and it's not too much traffic, he doesn't have to hit the button. That highway driving should burn it out. But if he's not, if he's going to the next stop and it's right down the road, he wants to find a safe place, put the vehicle in park or neutral, with the parking brake on, of course, and pressing that regen switch. Just tell the driver to make sure there's no combustible materials such as paper or leaves, because that exhaust will get really hot and will cause a fire. So make sure they're in a pretty clear area where there's no loose material underneath that can catch fire. Generally, the regen is done in about 20 minutes, sometimes a little shorter, but it's around that period of time. And then let it process. If the truck goes into regen mode, generally what happens is there'll be a notification, the idle will jump up, and the exhaust will start regenerating, getting hot enough and trying to burn off that soot. One thing you want to tell your drivers not to do is start driving in the middle of the regen process, because what will happen is the whole thing's got to start back over again, and he's not going to have a clean filter unless he absolutely has to do it. But if he's in a clear area, just do it manually, let it regen on its own, and then he can be on his way. It'll take him right through the process on the information screen on his truck. Doesn't matter what make and model, they all have a regen, all works the same way. So this is the problem if they don't do a regen. If the amber light is ignored and the red light turns red, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. If the amber light is ignored and the light turns red, followed by an audible alarm, this will be a warning to the driver that the DPF is severely clogged and also will require a manual regeneration immediately. Tell them not to ignore that red light. If the red light is ignored and the check engine light illuminates, this will put the vehicle into a reduced power, or what we call limp mode, and require the vehicle to be towed. So here's a graph. Feel free to, if you want, I'll send this over to you. Amber, red, plus check engine light is a dirty filter. Truck has to be towed. So we don't want that. Here's another thing when it comes to that. When it's a DPF filter issue, we have to take it to the dealer. And if you're not familiar, when a truck goes to a dealer, it can be there an awfully long time. So it's not going to be fixed right away. So just warning you, warn your drivers, get this out to them, how the regen method works. The reason why I'm mentioning this is, like I said, trucks idle a long time in the cold weather. So this is just how to prepare yourself. Another good practice that's not on this slide is what I always tell the drivers is if they would find throughout the day, didn't have to do a regen, make a good habit of when they get back to their, where they end their day, whether it be a warehouse or a parking lot, wherever they're parking their trucks, while they're doing their paperwork, hit that regen switch. Maybe do it at the end of the day. This way, at least they know the next morning, whether it's that driver or a different driver, they have a clean filter for the next day. So it's a good habit. If they're on their own parking lot, their own warehouse area, whatever, at the end of their day, hit that button. If it does a regen, fine, let it regen. If it doesn't, then it's not going to regen. But either way, at least they know that they have a clean filter for the next day, and that's a really safe way and common sense method of uh, getting rid of that problem. Now, like I said, being that these trucks are idling longer, it may have to be regen maybe more than once, maybe twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. It all depends on the idling time or what kind of driving you're doing. Unfortunately, we have a lot of traffic in this area. We all know very well. So sitting on that expressway or the Van Wyck or BQE, it doesn't help the regen. And it doesn't help the soot. It's just going to build up on that filter. So basically, it's got to get blown out or regened, and that's when they can do it. So a good method at the end of the day, perform a regen. Even if that light isn't on the dash, hit the button anyway. It's not going to do any damage. If it doesn't regen, then they're good. If it does regen, let it, and they have a clean filter for the next day. Also, there's always questions around the DEF, especially in the wintertime, whether it freezes or not. So for those newer trucks that have DEF, the DEF tank, I'm not going to go through all of these. Just keep in mind for your drivers that if they can't get it from HUB, they can get it most auto parts store. Walmart carries it. It's pretty common practice these days. We do see some people run out of DEF, and what happens? The vehicle's computer will automatically reduce the truck to limp mode with a top speed of 5 miles an hour. It'll slowly reduce the speed until the DEF tank is refilled. Once it's refilled, the computer will take off that limp mode and the truck will be good again. But it's something you cannot bypass. So make sure they have extra DEF on the truck as well if they're going on a long trip. Let's see here. So at the end of this regen, every person that operates a diesel vehicle should be familiar with the regen process and how the DPF system works. If your driver's not familiar, if you have a new hire, he's not sure, he's had an older vehicle that he's driven previously to a newer vehicle with these new emission controls, by all means, have him stop at the branch, have a mechanic or a branch manager walk him through the process, or another driver that's familiar with it. You don't want that truck breaking down or something that can be prevented. That's what we're there for as well, but it's very useful. One thing I wanted to bring up is I was given the reins to add material to our hubtruck.com website. So if you're not on the website, a lot of useful information is on that. I update all different regulations that are coming down the pike, any regulations that are changing. So feel free. It's a very, very useful website. It's kind of outdated as far as the images go, but everything in the middle of this page here is everything that I add in. It's like the newest thing is window tinting will be part of the New York State inspection process. So that's going to be passed on January 1st. So by all means, feel free. You can register. If you're not registered on the website, just go to customer login, create your own account. All you need is your HUB account number and your zip code. It'll find you. You can also put your mileage in there. All your fleet information will be in there as well. So this is a really useful tool. I'm really trying to get more interactive with our customers and give as many tools as they can. Also, I do videos, training videos. You can go to the H2L Learning Center, and I've done all the webinars that I've recorded. I also have a DPF regen video on here as well, which works pretty good. It's from Isuzu, but the method is the same for all the makes and models. So if you have a new driver, want to show them this, go to hubtruck.com. All these videos are on here. Even a pre-trip video that I have. You get to see my my face and in person doing a pre-trip. One more thing is hopefully within the next few weeks, we are working on a HUB app, and it's going to be free for all leasing customers. Let's try to find it here. Some screen pics of it. So Newark. So basically, this Hub app will be, you do pre-trip inspections on it. You can send the pre-trips. You can email them to whoever you'd like, whether it be a fleet manager within your company. This will be free for all leasing customers. Hopefully, we'll have something on this, more info within the next few weeks. So basically, this is the Hub. They can download it for free on their cell phone, whether it be iOS or Android. Emergency information. They can do fuel receipts. They can take a picture of it, proof of delivery, pre-trip, post-trip. God forbid there's an accident, you can do an accident on here as well. Road service, they can still call the 1-800 service, but they can also put more into details on this as well. So this is going to be coming down the pike. That's all the information I have on it so far. We've been working on it for quite a while, but the webmaster is putting their finishing touches on it. So hopefully within the next 2 months, we'll be rolling this out as well to help everybody. And it will be free. It will be included with to all these customers. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to type anything in. Also, feel free to call me or email me. I'm always available 5 days a week, 6 or 7 if need be. No questions, huh? Okay, so I guess we'll leave it there. And like I said, you have my contact information. If you'd like a copy of the slides used, feel free. I'll email it to you. I usually send it in the PDF form so you can share that with your drivers. This is really, really useful material. Just getting the message out there and sharing them some just common sense information. They may not listen to you, but if you hand them something and they read it, hey, whatever it takes to help, okay? So thanks everyone for listening in, and have a wonderful holiday.